Welcome. Today we're going to uncover the pretty dramatic story of what happens inside your body when it's forced to use its emergency fuel.
So we're going to start with a bit of a medical mystery. It's a symptom that, honestly, seems to make zero sense. But as you're about to find out, it's actually a huge clue pointing to a major, body-wide emergency.
Okay, so to solve this thing, we've got to go small. I mean, really small, all the way down to the cellular level. Because deep inside the body, there's this really strange standoff happening. I want you to just imagine this paradox for a second. On one hand, you've got the bloodstream, and it is just flooded with glucose. That's the body's main fuel, right? But then on the other hand, the body's cells are, well, they're literally starving. They are completely surrounded by the very fuel they need to survive, but they just can't get to it.
So here's the fundamental problem, right? It doesn't matter one bit how much fuel is floating around in the bloodstream if the doors to the cells are locked shut. All that energy is right there, but it's totally useless. And because of that, the cells are in a full-blown crisis.
Okay, so with its main fuel supply basically cut off, the body does what any system in crisis would do. It hits the panic button. It sounds the alarm and immediately switches to a backup plan, a plan B for getting energy.
So these starving cells, they start sending out a frantic SOS signal, and the body responds. It starts breaking down fat to use as an alternative fuel. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a pretty clever survival move, right? But this is not a clean switch. It's a really desperate move, and it comes with a serious and pretty dangerous side effect.
All right, now let's dig into how this whole emergency fuel plan starts to seriously backfire, because this desperate solution, it actually ends up creating a brand new problem, one that's in some ways even more dangerous. And this brings us to the villain of our story, these things called ketoacids. See, when the body starts burning fat for energy instead of glucose, these toxic, acidic compounds are the leftover gunk, the waste product, and they start to build up in the blood, which, as you can imagine, is a really bad thing. It basically starts turning the blood acidic. So now the body has a whole new crisis on its hands. The blood is becoming more and more acidic, so it launches this dramatic, all-out effort to fight back. It's trying desperately to restore that very delicate chemical balance.
And this is where we solve that mystery from the very beginning. The body's big response is to try and literally breathe out all that excess acid. This leads to a really specific breathing pattern, these super deep, super rapid breaths. And guess what? Those breaths carry that distinct fruity, almost acetone-like smell of the ketoacids. Yeah, as the source material points out, this weird breathing pattern isn't a mistake or a malfunction. Not at all. It's the body's frantic attempt to just vent those toxic acids out of the system, using the lungs to push them out, one breath at a time.
But the fight is nowhere near over. While the lungs are working overtime trying to get rid of this acid, another one of the body's systems tries to jump in and help. And you guessed it, it only ends up making the whole situation even worse.
At the exact same time, the kidneys are looking at the bloodstream and they see all of this dangerously high glucose still floating around. You know, the original problem that started all this. So they kick into high gear and stage this massive cleanup operation, trying to filter all of it out.
But there's a huge flaw in that plan. As the kidneys work to flush out all of that extra glucose, the sugar molecules basically act like little sponges, and they pull enormous amounts of water out of the body right along with them. So yeah, it's an effective cleanup, but it comes at a really, really high cost.
And the result of that is a whole new crisis, severe dehydration. So now, the body isn't just fighting an acid problem, it's also dangerously low on water. And you can actually see this physically in signs like warm, dry skin that just doesn't have that normal elasticity.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this whole domino effect. It all kicks off with that energy crisis in the cells, right? That forces the body to switch to burning fat, which creates all those nasty ketoacids. Then the body tries to fight back with the lungs and the kidneys, but that response ultimately leads to severe dehydration. I mean, it is a classic perfect storm.
Now, what's really important to understand here is that this whole process doesn't happen in a flash. It's not instantaneous. This is a crisis that builds and escalates over hours, sometimes even a few days, as one system's problem triggers a desperate and flawed response from another.
And all of this really leaves us with a final fascinating thought, doesn't it? Every single step we just walked through was the body desperately trying to save itself. But in this tragic chain of events, the solutions, the backup plans, actually became part of the problem. It's just an incredible reminder of the razor-thin balance inside our bodies, where the very instinct to survive can sometimes create its own, even deeper crisis.